10 tips for single girls, how to hook in a husband, how to make sure you won't stay alone for the rest of your life, how to make sure you will not end up in your apartment with 50 cats. Hi everybody and welcome back to a new video on my booktube channel, Books with Leo. As you all can see, I've got new hair, it's a new me. It's a whole new thing. Yay. I've been wanting to dye my hair like this for a very long time, but I never did it, and now I did, and I'm really happy about it. So yeah, I really like it. Today I am here with a video to give you guys some book recommendations, and this is a book recommendations video for single gays and girls, boys, everyone that's single. But if you're in a relationship, I mean, maybe you can get some recommendations out of this as well. But this was made, it was made with the idea of books to read if you're single at the moment. I am currently single. I've been single for a year and a half now. It's been an interesting year and a half because when you're very young and in a relatively serious relationship, you know, you really grow together with somebody, and then you get out of that relationship and you're like, oh, but who am I really, you know? So it's been very interesting discovering that. So today I want to talk about a couple of books that are great to read if you're single at the moment, or just if you want some recommendations, you know, that fit the subject, I guess. Great explanation. Anyway, I've got a great mix. I think I've got some fiction books, I've got a poetry book, and I've got some non-fiction books, so it's all different things, many different recommendations. So yeah, let's get into them, and I really hope you take away something from this video. The first book I want to talk about is What a Time to Be Alone by Chidera Eguru. I read this book very recently and I listened to it on audiobook, so I listened to it on Scribd, I think, or on Storytel. Chidera Eguru is an amazing activist feminist writer, and this book was just full of quotes that really struck home with me. I was listening to it and I was just constantly like, oh my god, I need to write this down. So in the end, I literally grabbed a notepad and I wrote down all the quotes that I thought were so impactful. So this book really made a lasting impression on me. This book is basically, it's a sort of mix of self-help, feminism, and being happy on your own. So I think that's how I would describe it. It really delves into being confident, being happy in your own body. It dives into how to be whole on yourself. There's a lot of quotes about validation and self-worth as well, which is something that I'm continuously struggling with. So I think that is also why this book was so gripping to me. I don't know, if you've read a lot of self-help books, if you're very experienced in this genre of books, then maybe this will be a very basic and duh sort of book for you. But I think if you haven't read a lot of these books like I have, then this might really be eye-opening, especially because Chidera really talks about being in your 20s and finishing where you are first and loving yourself because nobody else is doing it for you. And there were some great quotes why wait for that unconditional fairy tale love, and just give that love to yourself, stuff like that. That really just made me feel oh my god, you know, you don't really need somebody else to be whole. You can be whole on your own. You can be a happy single and live your best life. And of course, that's not to say that, you know, dating is something you should never do. But she really explains very clearly, I think, why you're worthy to exist just on your own, and you're not a half person because you're not in a relationship. And so I thought that was very important and very well done. The audiobook is also very short. I think it's an hour and a half or something, and it is read by herself, so that's really fun. And she is also very popular on Instagram. I think her Instagram is called The Slumflower or something like that, so that's definitely something you can check out as well if you're interested. I think this book is especially very empowering if you are a new single and if you really need to feel you know, maybe you made the right decision, and, you know, you need to feel strong in your own body and need to feel I am doing this, I got this, I can be on my own, I can discover who I am. And I think especially then, this book is very helpful. Yeah, it was a powerful mantra. There were so many things in there that I would be oh, I have to write it down, put it on a playlist, and, you know, say it to myself in the mirror or stuff like that. So yeah, I thought this book was really amazing. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is Let's Talk About Love, written by Claire Khan. I have not finished this book. I've started reading it, I think, a couple of days ago, but it was so, I really felt I should include it on this list because this book already, in the first couple of chapters, it really dives into relationships and love and what is important, you know, and what is a relationship, what is love, and what is the most valid part of it, and how do we view it as a society. So there was lots of discussion in this book that I felt was very You know, very interesting if you're single right now and if you're somebody who tends to mull things over or, you know, like me, think way too much in general. That's why I want to recommend this book as well. This book is about Alice, who's asexual and she's also bisexual. And she is currently in a relationship with her girlfriend called Margot or Margaret or something of the sort. Basically, Margot breaks up with her because Alice doesn't want to have sex with her. Alice is having a very hard time coming to terms with the fact that she is asexual. She's not really sure like how to... Like, she's accepted it for herself, but she's not really sure how to deal with it inside of relationships, which I thought was such an interesting subject. I've not read any other books that discuss this sort of thing. Alice meets another guy that she really likes, and from here on out, this book delves deeper into what relationships mean and the struggles of Alice as well. I want to make very clear that I'm not including this book because it is about an asexual person. Like, I don't want to imply that asexual people cannot be in relationships, because that is absolutely not the case. Like, I know asexual people that are in happy long-term relationships. I just think this book is very interesting to read if you're currently single, because it really deals with some subjects surrounding relationships and love, and that so many different people experience different forms of love and have like different sorts of relationships that are all valid. And I thought that was a very interesting discourse and not something that I'd read before. This book is also it feels like very informal, so it's like very like loosely written with a lot of humor, and I really enjoyed that, or I am enjoying that currently. Let's Talk About Love is also a book I would definitely recommend. The next book I want to recommend is Validate Me by Charlie Cox, and this book is very different from everything I normally read. First and foremost, this is a poetry book, so I have read poetry in the past. I might just be a bit picky when it comes to poetry. Like, I am very set on things I do and I do not like in poetry, but this book by Charlie Cox, I don't know. I'm still sort of divided on it. I really wanted to include it in this list because it does discuss some things that I think are very interesting to single people. It sort of feels like a memoir, but it's not a memoir, but it's basically partly poetry and partly bits of her life written in prose, which I thought was very interesting because I have never seen this before in a poetry book. I also think this is very helpful for if you're firstly getting into poetry and you have not read a lot of poetry before, because this is sort of partly fictionalized happenings and partly poetry. I'm saying partly poetry a lot, but you get what I mean. So that was very interesting to read. And this is also, I think, a book that is very... sort of typical of the 20s experience. Like, Charlie is definitely trying to figure out her life and, you know, feeling lost in certain places and feeling out of place, feeling weird, discovering herself, relationships. And foremost, this book is really about validation and where to not find validation. I would definitely say trigger warning for this book if you are currently depressed or struggling with depression or mental health issues, because it was a bit triggering at certain points. I would say it is a bit of a heavy book here and there. At the same time, it was very funny at certain points as well, so it was like a good mix of everything. Like, it made me smile, then it made me cry. It was like, it made me feel a lot of things, especially because Charlie, like me, really struggles with validating herself and not just being out to date because she's looking for appreciation, which is a different thing than love. And I thought that was very interesting to read about, especially because you really start feeling closer to Charlie as you read parts of her life and then read poetry that is sort of, you know, derived from those parts of her life. So I thought that was a very interesting build-up. Overall, I thought this poetry collection was very interesting, and especially interesting to read if you're currently single as well. So yeah. That's my other recommendation. Okay, so the next book I want to recommend I have not read yet, but I had to include it on this list because it is way too perfect to not include it. And this is Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. Just saw this book is blurred by Chidera, who wrote the other book, which is kind of crazy. This book is written by Florence, who's an activist, feminist, an amazing writer, illustrator. This book is also full of illustrations, so that is very cool. This book is, I think, the perfect book for anybody who's currently single and who really wants to discover themselves and, you know, feel whole on their own and like feel valued and happy as a single. When I was doing research for this video and I was trying to like look up new books that are about being single or that, you know, talk about subjects like this, it is incredible how many books I came across that were like 10 tips for single girls, how to hook in a husband, and like how to make sure you won't stay alone for the rest of your life, how to make sure you will not end up in your apartment with 50 cats, and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my god, is there nobody that has written feminist books about how to be happy on your own, and that you're good and enough, and that you don't necessarily need to date anybody to be a whole person? And then Flora swooped in and was like, yes girl, I've got you, I have written a book that is just about that. So this book really talks about all different subjects. There's lots of things about feminism in here, there's lots of things about pretty privilege, how women are validated based on how they look, how they present. It's about the patriarchy, the male gaze, it's about being queer, and most of all, it is about dumping your significant other if they don't add any value to your life. And it is also about preserving your energy and making sure that you are friends with the right people and that you're not overstepping your boundaries all the time. And I think this book, I haven't read it like I said it before, but I've been following Florence for a long time, and I'm like a 99.9% sure that I will really love this book. So that's also why I'm recommending it right now, and I will update you guys once I've read this. We've already come to the last book I want to recommend in this video, and that is another fiction book. This is The Black Veins by Asher Monet. Disclaimer, haven't read this book either, but I just really wanted to include it on this list because this is one of the few books that I've come across, especially in YA recently, that is a no love interest book. So there's like no love interest in this book. Unnecessary love interests is something that really annoys me in fiction, because a lot of the time it's like, oh, there's a boy and a girl, and oh, they're in love now. It's like so unnecessary. Like, I'm reading a fantasy book. What for did the characters need to be in love? Like, this is not what I picked it up for. But, you know, it happens all the time. And so that's why it's so refreshing that Asher Monet wrote a book that is not with a love interest, whilst it's not, like, necessary. It's not relevant to the plot. And this book is basically about Blythe, who's bisexual. She's working in her parents' coffee shop when magical anarchists, I think, kidnap her family, and then Blythe and a lot of her magical friends that also have magical abilities go on a magical road trip to save her family, basically. So this is like a magical road trip with found family, and there's no love interest because it's a fantasy book. Of course, there's nothing wrong with love interests and love stories in fantasy, but I get so tired sometimes when it's not relevant to the plot. I'm just like, why, you know? Of course, I love romance as well. A lot of times it's not like I'm an angry feminist who wants to be alone forever. But it's just not always necessary. And there's so many people that are happy on their own and that are gorgeous and wonderful as singles. And there's even people that choose to be single because they like it better. And that's fine too, you know? So yeah, this is also a book I would really like to recommend to you guys. Okay, so those were all of the books I wanted to recommend to you guys in this video. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this video or if it was like a bit too personal, maybe, I don't know. Don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you never miss a video of mine. And I'll see you all in my next one. Bye!